Alright, all set. We're recording. Should be a pretty night, guys. It's middle November, about 60 degrees outside, and just 2 to 4 knots of wind. Haven't been up in over a week now. And it was just too perfect to pass it up. My A's are clear. Let's make sure we have full power before we go. Beautiful evening. We still have a little bit of fall foliage left this year. And a couple crops to be harvested. Yeah, pretty nice.
When I first trained and began flying paramotors nearly 4 years ago, I heard from instructors and pilots, and I read in the PPG Bible, always have an out. That is, always have a landable option within glide distance of your position, just in case you lose your motor. I felt like the sport has enough inherent risk, so I should observe any good rules of thumb like always have an out. It's just simple, and it's a way to increase safety, and it makes sense. We know that two-stroke motors can be temperamental, and we should always be prepared to land. And I'm a rule follower anyway, so it just gives me comfort. But as I flew with others and observed flights that pilots share online, I began to notice that not everyone observes this rule. In fact, it seems that in order to accomplish some of the most epic flights, paramotor pilots were choosing to take on risk. And I wanted to understand that better. Are there scenarios where it makes sense to take on more risk? I reached out to some really experienced paramotor pilots and asked the question, do you always fly with a landable option? Or do you strategically choose to accept the risk at times and fly somewhere without a landing area? I'm thinking over a forest or a large body of water. I heard back from a half dozen pilots. Most of them had over a decade of experience, and I learned two things. One, not all outs are the same. We might like to fly where there are hundreds of acres of flat land below, but in some cases, the land is clear of trees, but you have challenging terrain. Picture like boulders on the ground. Or the land might be clear of trees, but nearly covered in power lines, or crossed with wired fences, or perhaps you descend to that field and you realize that it's really on a slope or it's hilly, and it's difficult to land. In some of these cases, you might survive the landing, but you might end up with some broken limbs or gear. The land might appear clear, but you're miles from a road where someone could pick you up in a vehicle. Or you might land behind a locked gate. In these cases, you might be 100% safe, but you have hours ahead of you trying to get yourself and your gear home. If you landed in a forest and were hung up in a tree, it could be really dangerous. Paramotor and paragliding pilots have had mixed results in these scenarios, ranging from unscathed to shattered bones or worse. And we all know that landing in water while clipped into a heavy frame and motor may very well result in a fatality. So the message is to consider not only the presence of a landing option, but also the quality of that option. Number 2, you can make a commitment to yourself that you will always fly with an out. Pilots and instructors with 10 plus years of experience reaffirmed for me that they have always had an out during their flying career. My instructor told me that you will meet some of the most bold decision makers in the paramotor community. But you don't have to follow their example or their flight path. People come to power paragliding from any number of paths and backgrounds. We have paramotor pilots who are commercial aviation pilots, private pilots, skydiving background, drones, motocross, and many other common paths. And some folks are grounded in rules and procedures and safety, and others may be seeking speed and adrenaline with little margin for error. So what's the right approach for you? I can't say. I'm not going to judge others, but I know that there are paramotor pilots out there who are taking risks and pushing boundaries literally and figuratively guiding others to follow in their path. And while the dangerous flights may appear epic and worth the risk, I want to offer an alternative. For the guys and girls who are on the fence about flying or their approach with their flying career, I'd say this: commit to yourself that you'll always fly with an out. Even if the flight over the mountain would have been epic, even if following your friend across a lake would have been beautiful, even if crossing a huge development would have been faster, and even if your motor's been running like a top for 50 flights, commit that you'll always fly with an out. Am I presenting myself as a wimp or a killjoy compared to the risky guys? Sure, I can own that. If it means that I'm offering an alternative perspective to balance out the risky stuff that gets a lot of play online, that's fine. This sport is so incredible. We want to see people have a long and safe and satisfying career, and you have decades ahead of you. Take your time, take good care, and enjoy. I want to see everyone have an amazing time in this sport. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I'll catch up with you on the next one.